Pat, I wanted to start with just things about TPC, things about the Players Championship. And I know you've been in pain, you've been doing some stuff, and so I don't, I've got a list here. You feel free to chime in when you want, or if you have thoughts you'd like to add, or questions, comments,
Yeah,
concerns.
I'm sure I'll have some thoughts or things to add to this.
Okay. And this is in no particular order, but just things I think gamblers, DFS players, people should just consider when handicapping, when evaluating where to put their hard earned dollars into the Players' Championship. First of all, I think that form over course history really matters. I think that course history gets gets knocked down a tad at the Players Championship, given the variance of this golf course. You and I both played it in April one year. It is and again, we've walked it in the ropes during practice rounds with players. There's one bad swing can lead to many extra shots on your scorecard that you're not wanting, whether it's in the water or it's one of these stupid hazards that Pete Dye did. Whatever it is, it is just a course that lends itself to a little bit of chaos. Maybe not as much as we see at Bay Hill or even Honda or the Cognizant or whatever, but there's a little bit of chaos here. Obviously, you can have wind advantages or disadvantages depending on the weather. So that's probably another thing to remember is weather is going to be a big factor. Wind is going to be a big factor. But I do have a few stats here I want to rattle off that I think are interesting about course history and recent form. I put a lot more in the Discord. It's going to go in the research channel of the Discord. So, but I'm just going to tease the people here on the podcast with a little bit. In the last 3 years, Pat, 67 players have finished in the top 20 in the last 3 editions of the Players Championship. Of those 67, 27 of them, which I think is a lot. I don't know. Maybe obviously that's pretty subjective, but I think it's a lot. 27 had no better than a T45 finish in their previous 5 years at TPC. Now that could be miscuts. That could be they'd never played it before, but it's just no better finish or no finish at all, no start at all, never played the weekend, but never better than a T45 in the last 5 years. 27 players that finished in the top 20 fit that mold. How does that hit you? How does that strike you? You're a course history guy. How does that make you feel?
Yeah. I agree. I think when you're doing research for this golf tournament, one of the first thing that really jumps out at you is that there are a lot of guys that are going to check a lot of boxes, and then you go to the history, and you're like, it's really not adding up very good. And I agree. I think the form is certainly a bigger deal. I think there's some players I'm going to talk about tonight or this afternoon that I don't think fit the course history model, but I like how they're swinging it heading into this golf tournament. And you're right. This is it's similar. I like this course a whole lot better than I like Bay Hill. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of similarities. There's a lot of trouble on both courses that can one bad swing can totally derail you. Sam Burns today, you know, Sam Burns and Max Homa, both, I would say, pretty good drivers of the golf ball, went out of bounds in the first hole. So, cool. That's, that can happen, and that can happen on this golf course. So I'm in agreement so far with you, DB.
So then I was like, well, let me look at those 27 guys who had no real course history to speak of and see how they were playing leading up to their top 20 finishes. And of those 27, 13, almost half, had a top 10 finish or better in the previous 5 weeks leading up to the Players Championship. So I guess now also I will say this: if you look at recent form, and this is another thing to note, if you look at recent form leading up to the Players Championship, you will see when you look at top performers over the past leaderboards, which is something that I love doing on our on Bet the Number, kind of going to the 2023 Players Championship, the 2022, 2021. There was no 2020. We were there. It was one round, and then it was over, and then the world shut down. 2019 was the first one they had in March after moving it to May for all those years. But I like going back and looking back at those leaderboards and seeing what those guys did well, seeing their lead-in form, their lead-in course history. Even the form, there is for sure some spotty form. There could be a random miscut or two in their previous 5 weeks, but 13 of them had at least a top 10 at some point in the previous 5 weeks leading up to that event. So they had been playing, they had shown some level of form. And we all know that with those Florida swing events, especially the Honda and the API right before the players, especially in those events, again, we just got done talking about it. A ton of variance. One swing can change whether or not you're there on the weekend or you're not. It can change whether you have a top 10 or you don't. You have a top 20 or you don't. So I would say also, don't get too wrapped up in your guys having to have like picture perfect chalk form either, right? But I do think that the form gets a slight bump over, well, I would say a significant bump in my mind over course history.
I would agree with you there. I'm
Beautiful.
paying attention to you, just so you know.
Are you? Are you on your what was it we said last week? You're on
Some other land?
yeah,
Oh,
Eric Van Rooyen land or whatever it was.
yeah.
All right, and other things about this golf course. If you go back and you look at a bunch of player quotes, appropriately aggressive and appropriately conservative on this Pete Dye course. And I know you and I can definitely testify to that, having seen it very up close and personal. I think that's a big thing people need to remember. Short game and mental game is going to matter a ton. So short game is going to matter. It's going to matter even more if the weather turns rough. Right now, I will say this, Pat, we have a perfect week in store at TPC Sawgrass next week. Very mild temperatures, very mild wind. I don't see any rain in the forecast. I bet they can get the course playing as firm as they want it to play. And it looks like it's going to be optimal for scoring. Even in that case, short game matters here. You will miss these small greens. But also just the mind games that dang Pete Dye plays on you at this golf course, and some of the bad breaks, and some of the slight misses that you have that result in a big number, and then can you clear the mechanism and move on and finish that hole out and go to the next hole and bounce back, right? I'm sure we would agree that matters.
Yes.
Two more things I have. Bad putters can win here, as can average length hitters can win here. You do not have to be a bomber here. I do think in March, if you read through a lot of the player quotes, they do make it pretty obvious that in March, it's not as firm and fast in the fairway. So guys hit more drivers. In essence, it makes the fairways a little wider. It's not running out as much. So I do think it plays into the longer hitters a little bit more in March, but it is not a prerequisite. And we've seen that on the leaderboards. But average distance, I do think is good. If you're super short, probably going to have some issues. But we've also seen plenty of bad putters do well here. We've seen guys lose strokes putting that do just fine here. This is primarily a second shot golf course. Precision, placement off the tee, second shot course. Have some short game. Have some mental fortitude. Hang on to your dicks and play well at the Pete Dye design. Would you have anything else to add here?
No, 100%. I think every year we tend to see somebody up on the leaderboard, maybe a couple guys that you're just like, what the hell is that guy doing up there? Like
Chad Ramey for me last year.
A David Lingmerth or something.
God,
Chad Ramey's a good one. Fred Funk won this golf tournament, and that was a little bit different back then.
Oh my God.
But I mean,
what a pull.
Well, I mean,
you're right.
You talk about distance. I mean, the guy hit a lot of fairways, but not a whole lot of distance. So yes, I'm with you there. What else do you have, DB? You had one more thought, or was that it?
No, I think that's it. I mean, if you've been doing this for a while, maybe put in the comments, drop it in the YouTube comments. What do you need to tell yourself? Let's all help each other. What do you have to tell yourself? What do you have to remind yourself about this golf tournament, about this golf course, about betting it, about playing daily fantasy, whatever it is? Put it in the comments, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. And let's get into the picks, Pat. Let's get into
I had a thought.
Oh, you did? I thought you were done.
No, I had a thought.
Good.
I was going to ask you this.
Okay,
actually.
good.
This year, it seems like we have. I think I read, because we're going to go to the rookie press conferences on Tuesday morning. I want to say there was close to 30 rookies in the field, 27, something like that. Is that right? I don't know. What the number may not matter. It feels like there are a lot of guys that are rookies, though, that are playing extremely well leading up to this event, but they've had to go through a little bit of a grind because, when you had Mexico, like we'll take Jake Knapp, for instance, you had Mexico, and then he had to play, he played the API, or no, he played the Honda the next week. And then he had to play the API because he got in there, obviously, and it's an elevated event. And now they're playing at the Players. So with this elevated event coming right before the Players, I do wonder a little bit of a fatigue factor with the guys who've grinded the last few weeks out, whereas like a guy like a Scheffler or whoever can kind of like pick their schedule. So does that lend itself to, like we're probably going to see at the API, a lower odds guy winning, not a long shot like we've seen this year?
Listen, I mean, Pat, I don't know if you've taken a gander at Jake Knapp today, but I mean, he's a physical specimen. Okay, I'm not worried about Jake Knapp being tired.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a mental
Seemed a little tired yesterday.
maybe there's a mental grind when you have to play Honda and you have to play API back to back. I could see that being an issue. But I don't know about that for Jake Knapp. And I think if you're at your first players, like you got to be up for that. You just have to be up for
For
that.
sure.
Like now, I don't have any. Well, actually, I might need to check on one guy. I don't think I have any rookies picked to possibly win here. I don't think this is a rookie. Siwoo Kim, God bless our sweet South Korean prince, who we hope to see on Tuesday. Like, other than Siwoo winning at 500 to 1 a couple years ago, 2017, I think Webb won at 100 to 1. Everybody else has been pretty short. So you're right. I mean, we tend to see the cream rise to the top here, and that's what the tour wants. I mean, and the tour sets this golf course up however they want to. It's going to reward ball strikers and the best players in the world. So that is the goal that they're hoping for here. I mean, you had Scheffler win last year, you had Cam Smith win, you had Justin Thomas win, all that good stuff. Tons of big names have won here. But I don't know. I guess it just depends on the rookie. But like my if I were to be the most bullish I'll be on a rookie is a top 20. I don't really see, even though, yes, you're right. I think at times we will see them up on a leaderboard, but just for over 4 days, I feel like it's all going to regulate.
I feel like Aberg is about the main rookie you could look at.
Aberg, yeah, that's true. I actually, you know what? I don't even consider him a rookie for some reason. Like he clearly is, but in my mind, I don't think about him as a rookie. I just feel like we talked about him a lot last year. He's already won. He just feels like a staple.
Do you think in his mind he doesn't think he's a rookie? Like what if he just doesn't show up to the rookie press conference? He's like, I don't need to show up.
Do you think he'll be there?
I mean, all of them were there last year when we did it.
I guess he will be. I don't know. I didn't even think about. I honestly don't even think about him as a rookie. That's crazy, but I don't.
I don't either. But he is.
All right. The one thing about rookies too to remember is this course. If you're a PGA Tour player or even a Korn Ferry Tour player, you get access to this golf course. So just because they haven't played the tournament,
a lot of them,
they all get access to this course. They play Korn Ferry Tour events at the Dye course, and I think even at this course to some extent. So, I mean, a lot of these guys are going to be quite familiar with TPC Sawgrass. It's just it's a $4.5 million to the winner. It's a big purse. It's a big event. It's the tour's flagship deal. It's there's all the hoopla around it. As close to a major as I think you get. Not being a major, it's not as big a deal as it used to be before all the live separation, but it's a big deal. And so you typically see the big guys get it done.